The Sha'Carri Richardson controversy really breaks my heart. It really does. In 2021, it's kind of embarrassing to say that because of testing positive for marijuana, that somebody is not going to be able to compete in an event in the Olympics, the grandest stage that has been taking place for centuries, in which countries can compete with one another, taking place on the greatest sporting spectacle on the entire planet, that this one very talented and very athletic young lady, who's only 21 by the way, is not going to be able to compete because she tested positive for marijuana at the United States Olympic trials in Oregon. And the only reason that she tested positive for marijuana is because she found out that her biological mother died in the middle of an interview. The reporter kind of released the fact, Sha'Carri didn't know that her biological mother died, but the reporter said that her mother died. She didn't know that, and she broke down. And her way of handling the pain and the trauma and the sadness and whatever else she might have been experiencing was to smoke some marijuana, either smoking a joint, bong hit, CBD, a pen, like whatever she used. She had marijuana in her system, and she was doing it in grief because of her biological mother passing away. Does that excuse Sha'Carri Richardson from the rules that are in place? No. You are not allowed to inhale marijuana. You're not allowed to, let me clarify. You're not allowed to have any marijuana in your system. It is a banned substance within a competing period, in which she was in a competing period. You're free to do it whenever, just not in a competing period. Those are the rules. She broke it. She even acknowledged that she knew what she was doing and that it is her fault and her fault alone, which that in itself, I love Sha'Carri Richardson for that, the fact that she was able to own up to it. But that doesn't excuse the fact of the matter that we're still talking about marijuana in 2021. And that marijuana, which scientifically is proven to not necessarily enhance your athletic ability, it's a mind sharpener or a mind enhancer, depending on who you ask. Although I certainly have had friends who have been slumped in my couch due to marijuana, so I don't know exactly how the science works on that one. But this is marijuana in 2021. We have better knowledge about what marijuana is, what it does, and it's no better or no worse than alcohol. It's the same type of drug as alcohol. And I'm not necessarily, I don't smoke at all. It's not my vice. But if anybody is blaming Sha'Carri Richardson, which I don't think anybody is, for smoking marijuana after, finding out abruptly in the middle of an interview that her biological mother passed away, I don't think anybody blames her. But the rules are the rules. And a lot of the people have been saying, well, why can't she just be given a free pass, especially when states around, the United States are actually legalizing marijuana? And the solution is that it's not a United States issue. It's an international issue. This is an international rule, which, again, kind of the argument that I'm going with is that it shouldn't be. We have enough research to know what marijuana can and cannot do, and I am of the opinion that it's not as harmful. Marijuana is not the reason that Sha'Carri Richardson ran a 10.68 in the 100 meters. It's not because of marijuana. And sure, there's some arguments. I think a former football player said something along the lines of, if somebody was smoking weed or throwing a javelin, I don't know that I would feel so comfortable, which I guess he has a point, even though it's kind of a bit of a memey point at that. But the fact of the matter is that marijuana is not the reason that Sha'Carri Richardson ran one of the fastest times ever recorded, and she was a gold medal favorite in the Tokyo Olympics. And again, it's not a United States issue. It's an international rule in which the United States track and field team does abide by. And it's a little bit different, and the situation might not have been the same if Sha'Carri Richardson were competing for another country. The U.S. is a little bit different in the fact that they are very, very strict about who they send to the Olympics. It's the top 3 qualifiers, or it's the top 3 times in the Olympic trials that get sent to compete for the United States in the 100 meter. It's a little bit different for the relay, which Sha'Carri does have a chance to compete in the relay, but that's up to the USA track and field team and their procedures. Marijuana is on the World Anti-Doping Agency's list of prohibited substance, and both the USADA and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee are signed to that code, and they must follow that rule, which is why the suspension for Sha'Carri is happening. It's not a U.S. issue, it's an international issue that the U.S. abides by. And it's heartbreaking because, this young lady has put in hours and hours of effort that we as spectators, as either fans of the sport or as supporters of our country, if you're living in America, she has put in hours that we will never ever know, truly fathom, or ever see. And she has had all of this taken away from her. And this is the saddest part for me. She has had all of that work and preparation taken away from her in the fact that she cannot compete in the Olympics because she had marijuana in her system, because she decided to smoke to cope with the loss of her mother. I understand that maybe this circumstance and maybe this situation may be a little outlandish, and it may not be, it may not fundamentally change the system for the better. Like, I don't know if people are going to take a look at this situation and say, this is I never really curse on the show, so I'm going to have to bleep that out. I don't know if people are going to take a look at this and say, this is we need to change the rules to prevent stuff like this from happening, because as I've said a couple times already, marijuana is not the reason that Sha'Carri Richardson is running a 10.68 in the 100-meter sprint. I don't know if somebody in the higher up is going to take a look at this and saying, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here? This is clearly one of the most talented athletes in the world, and we're not going to have her on a global stage, whether it's part of the Olympic Committee or whatever. We're not going to have this athlete on a global stage because she tested positive for marijuana, and we know the reasoning, and it was not for her to gain an athletic advantage. It was for her to deal with the loss of her mother. And again, we have enough research to know what marijuana does and why it's used. It's no different than alcohol. It provides the more or less the same effects. Obviously, things are a little bit different, but when it comes to how these substances are classified, you can look it up and take a look. Alcohol and marijuana, they're the same type of substance, but nobody has a problem with drinking. Nobody has a problem with drinking. It's just weed. It's pot, lettuce, what grass, whatever you want to call it. It's no different from alcohol. Why are we, as a society and an international race of human beings, why are we still so tied up in our panties about marijuana? Especially when it comes to athletics. It's something that I won't understand, and my heart breaks for Sha'Carri Richardson, who has put in a lifetime of work to be able to compete for her country at the Olympics, and all of that is taken away from her because of a rule over marijuana, in which in 2021 that rule should probably be eliminated because of what we now know about the substance and what it does to our bodies. We have the research, we have the knowledge. Why is this still a rule in 2021? My heart breaks for her. Especially in the fact that the only reason that she's disqualified is because she decided to do it, grieving the loss of her mother. And yes, absolutely, rules are rules, and she knew what she was doing. And I commend and applaud Sha'Carri Richardson for owning up to the rules and the mistakes. I'm just saying, and again, I'm not saying that, we shouldn't abide by the rules. Rules are rules for a reason. I'm saying it shouldn't be a rule. And I think that's what most people have been echoing. I hope that she gets to compete in the 100-meter relay. Obviously, her suspension is not going to be up in time for her to compete in the 100-meter sprint because the U.S. track and field eliminated her time, so she therefore did not qualify. So I hope things get better for her, and I hope that, all the time and effort that she has put into being an Olympic athlete, which, if we go look at the numbers, that's astronomical for a lot of people. I hope things get better for her, and I hope that she can, serve her country as an Olympic athlete. It breaks my heart that this situation has happened to her. Hey folks, thank you so much for listening to this segment from the Hard-Headed Sports Podcast. If you enjoyed this segment, make sure that you drop a like on the video and a comment. It helps me out a bunch. And if you're interested in watching more segments like this from the show after the show has been completed, you should definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're interested in listening to the entire show in its full-length entirety, you should listen to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Once again, thank you so much for watching the video. My name is Nick Ryan, and I will see you all again very soon.